Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, which is the ultimate guide to contextual marketing for the restaurant industry. We're going to give everyone a few minutes to join in, but we'll be back at about 1:03 to get started with the presentation. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And again, welcome to today's webinar about contextual marketing for the restaurant industry. My name is Leah. I'm the marketing specialist here at Movable Inc., and I'm going to be your moderator today. So first things first, I'd like to introduce today's speakers. So we have Mike Ricci and Marissa Goba here today. Mike is the CMO over at Digital Fusion, and Marissa is an account manager here at Movable Inc. in New York City. Before we get started with everything, I'm just going to go over a few housekeeping items while you guys are reading the agenda. So you should be hearing audio right now, so make sure that your volume is on and turned up. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to submit them. There's a questions panel on your top nav, and we'll be answering them at the end of the webinar. And we're also recording today's session, and we'll follow up with everybody in a couple of days with the recording and slides, so keep an eye out for that in your inbox. And also, if you have social media or if you're active there, please feel free to join the conversation. You can tweet at us at Movable Inc. Or at Digital Fusion HQ. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike.
Leah, thank you very much. Honor to be here today and really appreciate the opportunity to talk about a subject that's near and dear to all of our hearts. I figured a proper introduction to Digital Fusion was in order. We're a Denver-based performance digital agency, and by performance I mean we focus like a laser on using data to help our brands market smarter. We're one of Movable Inc.'s certified partners. We're proud of that fact, and we're helping deploy and implement that technology on behalf of a number of clients that we serve. And likewise, we're one of Salesforce Marketing Cloud's top 15 partners worldwide. They entrust us with some of their most treasured brands like Tommy Hilfiger and Calvin Klein, GE, ADP. But more importantly, we're focused, if you will, on this whole casual dining space and retail. And in casual dining, our client base includes brands like Menchie's, Village Inn, Baker Square, Red Robin, Spicy Pickle, Boston Market, and most recently, we are honored to have been chosen by Smashburger to help them take their digital programs to the next level. if you think about us, we're really laser focused on using all of the digital touch points, so website, social, mobile, email, search, and digital display ads to market smarter, if you will. So that's a little bit about digital fusion and our background and why this is a topic that we're excited to speak to. So having said that, with no further ado, I wanted to take everybody into the meat of the presentation. I entitled our portion of it, Content may be king, but context is queen, and there's a reason for that, and that's that we're seeing a rapid move, if you will, towards embracing contextual marketing with all of our brands. And having said that, part of this is being driven by this rapid shift to digital marketing in general. This is some data from Forrester Research, if you will, that shows how rapidly brands are shifting into digital marketing. As you look at the graph, a few things of note. Today, we're seeing brands spend approximately $77 billion on various forms of digital marketing. Interestingly enough, this chart's broken down by search, display, social, and email. Email being the smallest sliver of the digital arsenal. That's a little bit perplexing to us practitioners. When you take a step back and you think about email, the key characteristic of email is that it outperforms virtually every other digital touch point. We'll cover this later, but the ROI for every dollar invested in email, the return or ROI is nearly $44, $45 depending upon who you believe. So if you think about that stat for a minute, it's perplexing that we're not seeing more focus and more spend on email. But having said that, make no mistake about it, we're seeing this from brands across our portfolio. They are rapidly pivoting to digital. They're pivoting away from mediums like TV, outdoor, print, if you will, and they're embracing digital. There's a couple of reasons for that. The first of which is that digital is far more measurable, and candidly, it's more performance driven. So as we think about this shift, that's part of what's driving it. But I'm sharing now an article that appeared earlier this year in Ad Age, and it was entitled "Marketers Look to Digital as the Cure-All." And what this article was focused on was not just this titanic shift that's underway, but why marketers are pivoting very quickly to digital and what have you. Again, key to the shift was both the measurability of digital as well as the ultimate performance of it. The article goes into some detail to talk about what's the ideal mix in terms of digital versus traditional media and what have you. And quite rightly, the article says this is somewhat dependent upon whether you're a B2C or B2B player, and then likewise what vertical that you're in. But they said a healthy brand is allocating somewhere between 20 and 40% of their overall spend to digital marketing. And by healthy brand, I mean one that is driving forward from a sales end of things and outperforming peers in their space. In practice, however, what we're seeing from a lot of our casual dining brands is today that spend, depending on the brand, is someplace between 3 to 8%. There is no question in our minds that some of our casual dining brands need to get more aggressive and pivot into digital, but let's just say that they're following that wave. Interesting enough, though, in this article, one of the brands that was cited, and you can see it somewhat in the text in this slide, is Darden. Darden, in their second quarter, if you will, outperformed analyst expectations, and when their CEO was asked about that, he pointed back at the fact that the brand now allocates 25% of its marketing spend to digital. And he said that's one of the reasons that they're outperforming other brands in the space. So interesting data point to consider as we move forward. This next slide actually comes, or it fell out of the NRA show earlier this year. And I realize that I'm preaching to the faithful here, but this whole casual dining space is undergoing rather dramatic space focused around technology-centric innovation. That innovation is taking the form of brand new mobile apps, new mobile loyalty programs, social media marketing, mobile ordering platforms being propped up, and then enhanced in-store dining experiences that are being driven by technologies like Ziosk that augment the guest dining experience, allow them literally to order from a device in restaurant. One of the brands that we stay closely tethered to is Chili's, and if you've been to a Chili's store recently, you will have engaged with Ziosk. So lots and lots of innovation taking place in the space. And what's really interesting, though, is that this article sort of focused on one of the key points, which is that the consumer's expectation is that they're going to have a seamless experience with your brand across every digital touch point. So whether they're touching your website, your mobile app, an SMS program, or your social media and display programs, they're expecting that experience to be seamless throughout and as well to be data-centric. What they've basically said is that it's no longer acceptable for brands to be impersonal to the consumer today. So again, we're seeing this play out with a number of brands that we serve, but it's interesting how quickly brands in the casual dining vertical are embracing technology. This next slide actually falls out of a presentation that was given at NRA as well by John Costello, who is President of Global Innovation with Dunkin' Donuts. I'm sure that everybody on the phone recognizes that Dunkin' Donuts is one of the technology leaders. They rushed into mobile apps before it was even cool to do so and have come up with a very, very innovative mobile app experience. But as John spoke to the crowd at NRA, part of what he was imploring everybody to do was to get serious about technology, to begin to grab a hold of it and either disrupt or die. And his point was that there are ripe examples throughout the casual dining space, examples from not just Dunkin', but brands like Mooyah and Five Guys and Chili's, who are using technology to create a distinctly different experience for their diners and their patrons. And more importantly, they're all beginning to use data to be more personal and relevant as they touch the consumer, no matter which medium they're touching them in. As well, if we think back to email, you notice that the slide here, the title, "Email Isn't Dead, It's Merely Undergoing a Renaissance," is right on the mark. So while it's easy to get excited about all these new technologies that I just cited and their impact, the digital workhorse, if you will, remains email. And so having said that, I talked earlier about $44 to $45 returns. That's the most recent DMA figure. This one's a little bit dated, but having said that, as important as email is, what's fascinating to us is that throughout our portfolio of clients in every vertical, we see way too many examples of batch and blast email where every consumer receives the same kind of email. There is no personalization taking place. And likewise, what we're also seeing as we work with those brands is the practitioners of batch and blast email are seeing their open rates fall, their conversion rates fall, and in many cases their sender scores are getting perilously low, if you will. And there's a reason for that, and the reason's really, really simple. The consumer believes that once they've granted permission for the brand to speak to them, and they've waded through personalizing their experience via a preference center or providing other data for your email, their expectations are that you are going to be personal and highly relevant in all of your touches with them, not just in email, but as well in other mediums. So having said that, we think that it's imperative that brands take the next step, that they begin to become very data-centric in all of their touches. And the reward, candidly, is just higher ROI. lest anyone believe this is merely our opinion, early last year, Forrester released a white paper entitled The Personalization Imperative, and they were imploring all marketers, not just marketers in the casual dining space, to take their digital marketing efforts to the next level, if you will. They were saying that consumers are tired of what's happening with batch and blast, that they really expect that you're going to be more relevant. And so, likewise, with this white paper, they published some research, and they went out and they polled 400 marketers worldwide, principally CMOs and VPs of marketing, about the importance of personalization, or the importance they were placing on personalization. And you see the stats here. 92% of your peers said that it's increasingly important, and then more importantly, somewhere around 85% said that it's either extremely or very important to both short and long-term plans going forward. So again, this isn't our opinion as an agency. This is well supported with research that we're seeing in the space. Likewise, just flipping the switch, one of the key forms of personalization is contextual marketing, and we're going to speak to exactly what we mean about contextual marketing. But interestingly enough, as brands look at contextual marketing and its application, you see the results, but the 5 most ripe areas for contextual marketing are the website, email, social, display, and search, and that should be no surprise to everybody on the phone today. Having said that, we certainly think that contextual marketing absolutely has its place in email, and that the people that embrace this tactic and become contextually relevant stand to reap higher ROI. To that end, I wanted to sort of really put in the ground a stake that talks about what contextual marketing is. And so if we think of contextual marketing as creating helpful and timely experiences for consumers with a given brand, that's a good baseline for it, if you will. And we're going to go into specific examples in the webinar, but some ideas, if you will, are beginning to personalize your email with the closest location. And the technology that Movable Ink has allows us to personalize an email where at time of open, I can show the consumer where your closest store location is so that they can easily find their way to it. Likewise, another example is beginning to personalize that email touch with weather. So if it's cloudy outside, or it's about to snow, or it's ungodly hot, that impacts your patrons' dining experiences. If we can use the weather to inform content and offers that appear in the email, you're both going to be more relevant, but you're quite likely going to drive not only better engagement, but ultimately conversion. So think of it, if it's snowing and all of a sudden I'm presenting offers for hot coffee or cocoa or things that go along with the weather in that email, and I'm using dynamic content in order to deliver those offers, then chances are higher that the consumer is going to act upon that email and that offer and find their way through your doors. These are different examples, and again, we're going to cover them as we go along, but things like contextual imagery, personalizing emails to include the images of the local city, if you will, personalized and relevant offers that fall out of a customer's transactional history, loyalty program data being integrated into your email. While it's a little bit of a stretch from what we're talking about in casual dining, for one of our clients, Rack Room Shoes and Off-Broadway Shoes, we tie in loyalty data to the email to alert the consumer how close they are to the next plateau, and then as well we tie in an offer that may be able to be redeemed in the next 3 days. And what we've seen is an extremely high incidence of consumers showing up to redeem that offer so that they can ratchet up to that next loyalty level, if you will. And then I mentioned weather personalization and some of the use cases there, but these are all good examples of how we begin to use contextual marketing and the technology that Movable Ink has to personalize email and take it to the next level. So what's in it for the brand? Again, this falls back to some work that Forrester did. For companies that are taking contextual personalization and making it table stakes in what they're doing with marketing, they're seeing lifts of increases in between 15 to 20% in their program ROI. So there is definitely a payback. We're experiencing that across the brands that we serve. And candidly, you can translate this into raw dollars and cents for your programs today, but no question about it, there's definite lift when properly applied. And with that, I'm going to transition over to Marissa. Marissa?
Great, thanks Mike. Hi everyone, it's Marissa Goba here at Movable Ink, and I will be taking you through the next portion of today's webinar. Movable Ink is a contextual experience engine that really empowers marketers to connect with their customers as they move seamlessly between moments, places, and devices. Now, what exactly does that mean? If you think about how emails are sent today, they're static from moment of send, but with Movable Ink, you're actually able to dynamically change the content based on a variety of factors, including things like weather, time of day, device, or somebody's location. Movable Ink is located here in New York City, and we work with over 350 enterprise clients, both domestically and internationally, and we partner with such great brands like Darden, Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, Cafe Nero, Chick-fil-A, Seamless and Grubhub, and McDonald's. Email marketing really is the gold standard for ROI. Contextual email marketing can increase your return by more than double. I believe the exact stat is 44.25 is the typical ROI we see in email today, but with contextual email marketing, we're able to see that number go up to $80 per dollar for ROI. There's a lot of opportunity today for restaurants in the contextual space. Just to give you a quick snapshot of what the industry looks like today from a mobile and desktop perspective. Online marketing today drives 926 million restaurant visits per year. Think about how many that is. But a lot of restaurants today really do not take advantage of that. Only 32% of restaurants are actually using email marketing, while 45% of consumers today say that they make dining decisions based on their emails. Think about how often you're on your mobile device today. People are always on the move. They're always trying new restaurants, and if they like your brand, they want to know where it is. We really encourage our client to capitalize on key information like that. A few more stats here to give you some background before you jump into our examples. But 83% of people today say they rely on their iPhones or their phones to make dining decisions. If you are not utilizing email to help drive in-store traffic to your local restaurant, you're really missing a great opportunity here. And I'll take you through some examples of how we can do that today with Movable Ink. Live polling is a great way to collect information about your consumer. This really goes back to the trend of gamification of emails to engage readers with polls and build an evolving data profile around your consumers. The example you're looking at right here is done for Bahama Breeze, and this was around National Shrimp Day. As you can see, this live poll is the bulk of the creative. There's a strong call to action encouraging people to take action within this email. The percentages will be changing in real time based on how the votes are coming in. And there's three options here. A best practice we do have around live polling is we encourage you to have 3 or less choices. We've actually seen conversions decrease by up to 66% if you have too many options in your live poll. The beauty of progressive profiling here is that we're able to track where your customer clicked in your email and store that data for you. From there, we're able to deliver personalized, relevant content, essentially retargeting your email program based on a choice a consumer already made. So to give you an example here, if your consumer chose coconut shrimp for what their favorite what their favorite shrimp dish was, you'd be able to send a retargeted email based on what is going to be, what email program they want to be sending next. So you're able to really capitalize on that. And the beauty of progressive profiling here is you're really able to collect deeper insights about consumers by engaging participation to drive greater personalization. Rewarding loyal customers is also a big part of any dining program. What we found is that consumers love to see information about themselves, and by using existing data that's on file, you're able to really tell a story about your customer's relationship with your brand. For this example right here, it's done for Seamless. They're telling you the time of the week that you order the most, your top restaurants, and if you're in the top tipping percentage in your area. They saw 186% lift in revenue per email from this one campaign they launched. Really just goes to show you that people want to be involved with your brand and they really want to hear the story between the two of you. Local maps and map helpers are really a great way to present the nearest store location to a customer at moment of open. We're able to target by both IP address or by zip code on file. Somebody's moving city to city, if they want to be engaging with your brand, you want to be showing them the closest location to where they're physically opening your email. So if you're going city to city, if you were to open this email and reopen it, this information would be changing in real time, showing you the nearest in-store location. Mobile apps have picked up a lot of traction over the past year. Nearly every brand we work with has a very strong mobile program. And as opposed to simply just promoting it within the body of an email, the big call out like you see here done for Chick-fil-A, we're really delivering the appropriate creative content based on the device. So this one is geared towards somebody who opens on an iPhone. They're going to be directed right into the iTunes store. If you opened on an Android, you'd be directed right into Google Play. By deep linking our creatives, they can simply click on this email and then be deep linked to the appropriate app store where they can be prompted to download your app, really just making it a very seamless process for downloading. In creating personalized experiences, Starbucks used image personalization, as you can see here, on the coffee cup. So upon opening this email as part of their welcome series, you see your first name in that barista handwriting that you would see upon ordering in store. This is something that the customers really reacted to. It resonated with them because it's something they would see every day when they went to order their coffee. People were so excited to see this in their inbox. And this is really a good example of a brand that use first name personalization in an on-brand way. Simply just putting a first name onto a creative is not going to guarantee results. When you can do it in a way that your customer will recognize and be excited about, that's really where we see a lot of success.
Great. Thank you, Mike and Marissa. So now it's time for some Q&A, and thank you to everybody who's submitted questions throughout the webinar. So our first question from the audience is, what restaurants are doing loyalty programs really well?
Great, I can take that one. When I'm thinking off the top of my head of some of our brands that have done great loyalty programs, Dunkin' Donuts comes top of mind. If you get their newsletters, they're really telling you how many stores you visit, what kind of drinks you order, how many badges you've been collecting. They have really great engagement numbers on these emails. People are excited to see what their status is, how often their level of membership is changing, and it's in a very interactive way. And again, it's all in real time with movable ink as we're updating that information upon email open.
Great. And up next, the question is, for a marketer at a fast casual restaurant, what's their biggest marketing challenge?
You bet. I'll grab a hold of that one and run with it. But quite frankly, as we look at most casual dining brands today, their consumers have become highly mobile-centric, and the vast majority of them are not there yet. They're certainly not happy with how relevant they are in mobile. Either their websites aren't rendering correctly, or worse, they've got a broadband website experience crammed into a mobile device. We think that it's imperative that brands become mobile in a whole variety of different forms for their consumer. Mobilize the ordering experience, mobilize the menu, make sure that Their store locator, if you will, is mobile optimized so that it's quick and simple to find that brand. And then likewise, just one of the simplest things, use SMS to engage consumers that are very SMS centric. So I think it's imperative, if you will, that that some of the casual dining brands get more serious about becoming relevant and mobile, and then more importantly, using data to be more personal.
Great. And as a follow-up to that question, somebody just asked, do you see a trend towards restaurants moving to mobile app ordering and payments, such as, Starbucks, Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, et cetera?
Yeah, not a question about it. We're seeing more and more of our brands pivot very rapidly, not just to mobile ordering, but enabling mobile payment. I think it's still early days with regard to mobile payments. Consumer adoption still hovers in that 5 to 8% range. However, the brands that have enabled it, in particular Starbucks, are generating some unbelievably impressive results. So having said that, the consumer's expectations have definitely been lifted by what Starbucks has done. When I think of benchmarks for loyalty programs, that to me is always the gold standard. They've done an incredible job of creating a seamless loyalty experience throughout mobile and what have you. So not a question in this world that brands like Starbucks, if you will, have changed the game in the face of casual dining.
Great. Speaking of Starbucks, we have another question about them in particular. So what is needed to execute the personalization on a graphic in the email, such as the customer's name on the Starbucks cup?
Yeah, great question. So on the example we just looked at with the Starbucks cup, Movable Ink is only hosting the background image slice where that name is populating. So it's really just a white background slice where the name will overlay. The total creative requirements we need are that background slice. We needed the font type. This was a custom font, so they were able to deliver it to us in a OTF or TTF font file, to upload to their database. We need to know the font size, the font color, any URLs, and then we are passing that first name through via merge tag, so we just needed the data parameter associated with passing through first name appropriately.
Great. Up next, I have another, sort of technical, actually it's not as much of a technical question, but it's about the feature where you can show a map in an email. The question, or the person who's asking says that it's an interesting tool, but what if your store locations aren't nationwide? What would you show in that area instead?
I would say you have two options here. You could either collapse the map altogether to simply be a 1x1 blank pixel, or you could create default content that just said something along the lines of find your nearest store location here and link them to a store locator page.
Great. Another question, are any restaurants leveraging open table data with Movable Ink? And if so, how would that work?
At this point, I believe we are looking at an integration with them. So in order to tap into their API, we would just need to do a little bit of background digging on our end and then see what is viable. From a creative standpoint, the client would need to come to us with a sort of idea of what they had in mind. We'd be able to work with the client to strategize and work on creative to deliver this in a smart way that's really going to drive results for them.
Great. And I have, I think, one final question that I think is a good one to sort of round out the conversation. In particular, this webinar has spoken a lot about personalization, and this person's wondering what is required to do it right.
Yeah, great question. So it's funny, but personalization has become one of the buzzwords of our industry, and it means different thing to different people. But having said that, to truly do personalization right, what we need to mine is preference data from the consumer. So you'll be surprised at how much data the consumer will volunteer if you ask, and they understand that it's being used to personalize offer and their experience and the frequency at which they receive either email or text or what have you. So preference data is key. Behavioral data is key. The analytics that come off of your website and your mobile app tell us an enormous amount about that consumer and what they're truly interested in. So if we can begin to mine that to personalize content in the consumer experience, that's great. And then lastly, transactional data. So the customer's purchase history is unbelievably important, especially in the dining industry or the casual dining industry. Consumers end up being creatures of habit. They have certain things that they like when they frequent your restaurant. So imagine being able to personalize your email and or the offers that are in that email based on that transaction history. That's far more likely to drive the consumer back to engage with you and generate that incremental visit over and above their normal average visit. And in turn, if you will, hike and spike your ROI. So those are the things that are required to do it right. The beauty, though, that we see in a technology like Movable Ink is it allows us to even take it a step further, to make it contextually relevant based on time of day and open time and weather and all these other factors. So again, the more that we can cater that experience, the higher that we're going to drive ROI for some of these key staples of the digital arsenal.
Great. And with that, we are going to wrap up. Thank you so much for joining us today. And if you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out. You can either tweet at us or you can send us an email at contact@movableink.com. Have a good rest of your day.